You're listening to Marketing Talks. Digital marketers and entrepreneurs talk about work, life, and more. Hosted by Daniel Moore.
Hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Marketing Talks, marketing product entrepreneurship podcast. I'm your host. I'm Daniel Moore. If we haven't met before, I'm a PPC expert. I specialize in paid media across the big advertising networks, Meta ads, Google ads, LinkedIn ads. And this is my show. So every episode we host someone else from the Israeli tech ecosystem in different positions, in different companies, self-employed advisors or in-house experts from various companies. Today, I'm excited to have Helena Baker, who runs networking groups called English Speaking Networking and ESNInternational. Helena, I'm very happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you.
How is your day so far?
It's very hot outside. And I'm very pregnant, but it's fine.
Exciting
Thank you so
to
much.
see. And it's a very hot summer, obviously.
Yes. Always.
makes it not easy, but good for you. And thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. We met before. We have some mutual friends. We met at a co-working space, actually, where I started, a few years back, and I met you together with some other folks and friends. We spoke every now and then, and now I asked you, actually, to come to talk in Marketing Talks. Today we're going to cover mostly networking. Okay, why? Because you're the queen of networking.
I hope so.
And you got a lot to say about it, and a lot of content that I've seen and I was impressed with. So, everyone who's listening to us, you can find Helena and her juicy LinkedIn profile together with whatever she does and networking events and groups. So why don't you, Helena, tell us who you are and how did you get to what you do today?
Absolutely. Well, firstly, thank you for having me. So essentially, I made Aliyah from England. I'm British, you can probably tell, in 2019. In England, I was a freelance copywriter and got almost all of my business via networking groups. So I did a lot of networking. Yeah. And when I moved here, I found there was a lack of networking groups, specifically for the English market. There's a lot for the Israelis, but I wanted something really for the Anglos. So I created English Speaking Networking in September 2019. COVID obviously hit in March 2020, so that was an interesting time to start a business. And I now have 4 groups here in Israel. With COVID and kind of the way everything happened, I really sort of moved towards online networking. And so I created ESNInternational, which offers a space for business owners around the world in niche sectors looking to grow their business. So we have 2 creative groups and one group for lawyers.
Right. Why specifically lawyers, by the way?
I just think they like to lawyers really like to network. They really, really like to network. And I know that they get a lot of business from other lawyers. So I did some market research and it seems to be a viable option and seems to be working well. They definitely have different needs from other people when it comes to networking. Like the meetings have to be much shorter and you have to be much stricter with them because they don't really stop speaking. But it is a successful group.
Okay. I hope you didn't need too many lawyers for personal needs.
No, my father is a lawyer actually, but I'm good for lawyers at the moment.
Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. And you said before England versus Israel.
Yes.
Would you be able to specify differences,
in terms of networking?
Yeah, that you came across. I don't know, is the
Definitely.
culture and...
Yeah, it's super, super different, especially with networking. So a lot of the networking here was high tech, which was not at the time what I was looking for. And a lot of the networking here was in Hebrew, which my Hebrew is now good. It was not so good 4 years ago. And also, I think more than that, as an Ola and as an Ola Chadasha at the time, I was really looking for a community that offered me something that felt more like home and where I could feel really comfortable going to. The networking in Israel, I would say, a lot of it is like very informal. So it's through the army, it's through like school, which is true all over the world, but the army really accelerates that here. And it's not so much the networking, I guess it's more the business scene. You know, the Israelis just do business differently, you know. It's on a negotiation. It's always an ongoing negotiation. Even once you've signed the contract, it's still a negotiation. In England, that's not how it works. So definitely very different, and also daunting. It was daunting for an Ola Hadasha who, you know, had come and was suddenly dealing with, you know, hardcore Israelis. You know, it's not scary isn't the right word, but it was intimidating. Yeah.
Challenging entrance.
Exactly.
Threshold.
Yeah. I mean, listen, making aliyah is not easy. It's a different topic, but it's not. I thought it would be easy because I was like, well, I'm Jewish, so how hard it will be. But it was really. I mean, I'm glad I did it, but it was really hard.
That's for
different topic.
Aliyah podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's nice. But I mean, there is something in common, and you've written about it. A post about a month ago, I think. And it's maybe like a Jewish network. So, I mean, the network groups that you were part of in England, in which you said you built your client base on, were, I guess, mixed, or was it like a Jewish initiative? Or
I was a member of a lot of groups. Firstly, some of them, none of them were specifically Jewish, apart from one. I was living in northwest London, which is like extremely Jewish. So like some of the groups I went to were like 97% Jewish, but other ones were not. So it was very mixed. I wouldn't say I was exclusively networking with the Jews, but generally if you find a networking group in London, it would be rare that I'd be the only Jew in the room, let's put it that way.
Right. I see. Okay. All right. So I realized what made you start it, and what led you to where you are now. Is it something you do full time? Like this is your only occupation?
I do this full time. I do occasionally take on LinkedIn clients, but that's very rare. And at like a very, they're big high tech companies.
Right.
Yeah, I don't do it for small businesses, and it's rare that I do that.
Okay. Is there anything in networking, like internally inside an organization that can be done, or it's only something?
A lot of companies, certainly in Chutz La'aretz and even here, have internal networking organizations.
Right.
They definitely exist. I mean, I know a lot of the big law firms and accounting firms in England all have Jewish networks and like Muslim networks and Christian networks and things like that.
It's funny that it's based on religion in some
I'm sure
way.
There's other bases. It's just I happen to know about the religious ones for obvious reasons. And I think also here in Israel there's like different networks as well in the bigger companies.
Yeah.
I think
we're all just looking for things in common, basically.
Yeah, networking is I think comes naturally to a lot of people, and they don't even think about it that much. I know we're going to talk more about like employed people later, but I think that it regardless of whether you're self-employed or employed, you can kind of artificially make networking that little bit easier. You can keep in contact with people over LinkedIn. You can reach out for coffees. I mean, there's lots of different things you can be doing to enhance the network you already have. And in Israel, a lot of Israelis already have a very strong network.
Right. Okay. So we're good at that.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Oh, Israelis are great. And also because Israel is tiny, it's very easy to network because, you can go on LinkedIn and you really are two separations removed and it's genuine. Whereas in England, that's not the case. England's huge, Someone could go on my LinkedIn and I could be connected, it's much, much more removed. Israel's tiny, especially the tech system, especially in Tel Aviv. Like
everyone know everyone.
Yeah, it's not so hard. Yeah, it's a teeny tiny country.
Gotcha. Okay, so the networks that you run, that you manage full time, almost, let's say. So who's it for in terms of like the persona?
Sure. So my target market, and I know this podcast is more high tech focused, is on small business owners. So think like lawyers, graphic designers, web designers. Kind of that's the market, both here in Israel and also in the international groups. That isn't to say that networking is only applicable to that market. It was just that networking for that specific sector did not really exist in Israel until I created ESN. But networking, there's a lot of networking groups for high tech in Israel, which are really important. And also, I know from first-hand experience how powerful networking can be in Israel, because it really is all about who you know. Even like something as simple as when you apply for a job, you obviously go through the person you already know at that job because it's more likely to get seen by the right people. So there's a lot of really powerful networking sources here in Israel for the high-tech space, and I really encourage everyone to make the most of those. There's a lot of networking events, there's LinkedIn, there's so many things you can be doing that are really, really useful here, and more so than other country.
Right. And can I be like a good networker, if I attend.
So it's not just about attending the events. Unfortunately, there is an art. So I would say with events, the first thing you want to do is you want to arrive early. I know that's very hard for most Israelis. My husband is a Russian, so for him being 10 minutes early is on time and being on time is late. But
I'll just say in parentheses that Helena arrived
7 minutes late. It's fair. I arrived 7 minutes late, and I'll tell you what, the buses in this country are an absolute nightmare. But
it's
you are
fine,
correct,
it's fine.
and I'm not my husband. If it was my husband, would have been here 15 minutes early. You should know, yeah.
Just a side note, yeah.
100%. I'm not him. But for he's Russian. Well, he's Russian, kind of Russian. So for Israelis, being early, super duper important. Come early, speak to the event organizer, introduce yourself, say who should I speak to. And also, once you're early, it's so much easier to make connections because there's like 4 or 5 people in the room. So it's much easier to like break up a conversation, introduce yourself. Whereas if you arrive late and you're sweating and it's hot and you're stressed and you didn't know where the space was, exactly like I did when I arrived here. So it's very difficult to then kind of break up much, much bigger groups. So I'd always say A, arrive early. B, have a really clear goal in mind. So if you are new to networking or nervous about networking, so say, okay, I'm going to speak to 5 people and then I'm going to go home. And like have that as or if you feel more comfortable, to make it more people. But I'm going to have 5 conversations. Each conversation should be no longer than 10 minutes. And this is really important. Everyone is there to network, so don't hog somebody's time, especially if they're an interesting contact to you. Speak to them, schmooze with them, and after like 7 to 10 minutes, depending on how well it's going, say, it was great to speak with you. I really enjoyed this. I'd love to continue this conversation. Can I take your details? And it's all that can be WhatsApp, LinkedIn, whatever you want. And reach out to them after the event. And that's the third and most important part, is the follow-up. Is making sure that after the event you reach out to those people, that you arrange coffees with them, that you arrange Zooms with them, that you make it really convenient for them, and that way you can really build a network. The one last thing I want to say is don't arrive to a networking event hungry. Make sure you've eaten before. Even if it says there's food, do not arrive hungry. There's nothing worse than trying to network when all you're thinking about is dinner. So just make sure you've eaten beforehand as well.
Super, super important. And useful tips. I admit, maybe, I failed once or twice. So yeah, that's good to know. How about the correlation between doing your, self networking and, marketing yourself and not being very active in social media? Okay. Like, is it okay? Is it doable? Can you do this without that?
There's no rules. Listen, networking is always going to be more useful if you also are active on social media. Why? Because if somebody meets you and then you have a coffee with them and they really like you, but they may forget about you. Networking is about the long term. We're not looking at 6 months. We're looking at a year, 2 years, 3 years. So you have a coffee with them and then they forget about you. And then 2 years later, like, oh, I met that person who does exactly what I need, but I can't remember their name. It's happened to me personally. They won't forget your name if you're active on social media. If you're constantly posting, then of course they'll remember you. And if you're not constantly posting, then they may just forget your name and you may lose out on that connection. So in that sense, it is really useful to be active on social media. That being said, social media is a full-time job. It's extremely exhausting. And if you can't do it, so then I would say instead, make a calendar note. If you've had a really good conversation with someone and you feel it was really useful, make a calendar note 6 months or even a year ahead to reach out to them again. Like, keep that conversation going, keep that connection going. You've got to find a way to maintain it, whether that is social media, whether that's arranging for another chat, whatever that looks like. The other thing that I would say is that if you keep going to networking events, specifically here in Israel, we've discussed it's a very small country, you'll see the same people again anyway. So that's kind of another way to also do it, to hedge your bets, is to keep turning up and then also remember you. But it's about cultivating it and finding ways to do that, whether that's continued chats, whether that's social media.
So yeah, consistency on top of...
Consistency, whatever you're doing, is key.
I agree. All right. So we said who is it for? Mm-hmm. And in terms of like size of business, let's say
for my groups.
Yeah.
I would say they're mostly solopreneurs to small businesses. I wouldn't say, apart from actually the lawyers group, we've spoken about that a lot tonight, which we have like really big companies there, like I have like 250 people companies. Mostly it's like solopreneurs to kind of, maximum 15 people in the company.
Okay. And how can you avoid talking about the impact of COVID besides, transition to, I assume, various online tools that you got to use before?
Nothing fancier than Zoom, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's as sophisticated as we get at ESN, but yeah. So listen, I mean, there's two aspects to COVID, and one is the personal impact it had on me and my business at the time, and the other is more broadly in terms of networking. So in terms of my business, like I said, started 6 months before COVID's hit, and I thought, oh my God, my business is over. It's done. Like, this is it. There's no coming back, because like I said, online networking was really not a thing. And the whole idea of networking was to go and meet people and to see them. So what happened essentially is I closed the business for 3 months, and I did lots of online networking for free, which I don't believe in doing free business, but COVID was an exception to a rule and it was okay. And when we came, I don't know if you remember, but like after the first lockdown, we then opened up and Israel went crazy. Everything was open, everything was hofshi. Okay? It did not last, as I'm sure you remember as well.
Of course.
So we went back to face-to-face meetings, and in that time I opened a new group. And I actually went back online before the government changed the laws again, because I could see how it was going, and I had a lot of old people in my groups, to be honest, and I just didn't feel comfortable offering it. So I went back online like a few weeks before. And then we did online networking for a really long time, like fully online, for I think like 18 months, maybe a little bit longer, because I really didn't want to go back face-to-face and have to go back online again. You know, I wanted it to be like, once we were face-to-face, I wouldn't have to go back. We weren't going to go, there was no risk of another saga, of another lockdown. So we did that. Now, when I went back face-to-face, at the time I had, I think, 3 Israel groups. I assumed everyone would be desperate to go back. Everyone's going to be like, bring me back. We're ready, Helena. Let's go. And nobody wanted to go back face-to-face. No one was interested. They wanted to stay online.
Efficiency and...
Hold on. People don't always know what they want is really the lesson I learned from that. So I listened, and I put one group fully face-to-face here in Tel Aviv, and the other 2 groups I did hybrids, which was horrendous, and I did them mostly online and then every 6 weeks face-to-face. It was a horrendous business model, but whatever.
Every how many weeks?
6 weeks face-to-face. It didn't work. But so there's been a lot of transition since, but now I have 3 groups that are fully face-to-face. Why? Because people after COVID got lazy. But they didn't really know that what they did want. They wanted face-to-face meetings. They just didn't want to they didn't want more than one person to commit to it, because they got used to being online. They got a bit lazy, but they really wanted that personal connection. They were desperate for it. And now I have 3 very successful face-to-face groups, and we have one online group, which is for people in like the Krayot and Haifa and Netanya, where they don't have easily accessible groups. So people still do want that face-to-face networking. Online networking absolutely works. Every networking works as long as you dedicate the time to it and you make the most of it. It doesn't matter what networking, whether it's online or face-to-face. But it did take quite a long time for people to really be ready after COVID to kind of say, yes, I'm ready to commit to face-to-face. Like, it took them a little, like, people were in, mentality of online's amazing and everything can be done online. And it took them a little bit of time to reprocess, I would say.
Okay. And technically, any challenges there, or everyone...
In terms of what, sorry?
Like adopting, Zoom as a tool for...
See. It's harder on Zoom, as a facilitator, it's harder. Face-to-face is much easier. They run themselves. So as a facilitator, I have to be much more on it online and welcome them and be super a bit American, I would say.
Yeah.
The way that we do it online is that we do breakout rooms, and people can choose their breakout rooms. And that way they can still kind of do the more schmoozy networking side of it. That's really it's harder as a facilitator. As a participant, again, what you get is what you give. No, Dad, what you give is what you get. So as long as you are turning up to the meetings and having meetings outside of those meetings, it doesn't make a huge difference. I would say for the lawyers group, let's say, I've had lots of challenges there, because they get a 60-second pitch, but the lawyers will speak for 4-5 minutes. They just wouldn't stop. And then they'd all complain the meetings were too long, despite the fact that they'd spoken for an incredibly long amount of time. So,
right.
So it's that group, though.
And were there any impacts on the format of them? Like, did you have to, consider changing
when we moved online?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the structure stayed pretty similar, but we introduced breakout rooms. Basically, that was the main difference. And the meetings a little bit shorter. We just in the start, I did 3 breakout rooms, but it was too much for people. They get fatigue. So now we just do 2, and it's an hour and a half, maybe a little bit less. Whereas the face-to-face meetings normally last a little bit longer.
Right. Okay. And obviously guests and all the usual things that,
Of course, we have guests, we have guest speakers, we always have guests. And for the online groups, it's easier. It's mostly easier to get guests also because, they just hop onto a Zoom.
Okay. So Okay, let's talk about networking as a skill.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's easier for people who are more, socially, I would
disagree,
say.
actually, but sure, we'll talk about that. Carry on. I disagree, but carry on.
No. Okay, so I'll just, I'll
Go for
present the
present
other
the argument and
position. Yeah.
and I'll just slice it down.
Okay, I'm ready to be sliced. Networking as a skill.
Yes.
Are you, is it something you develop, or is it something that you are, born with, and naturally it's easier for you if you're a more, socially secured person?
Sure. So I'm a very good networker, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but I was also taught how to network. Like at 22, I was a member of something called BNI, which is a huge networking organization. They have it in Israel also, and they teach you how to network. So I was definitely taught. It was a taught skill. There's a lot of people tell me they're introverts and they can't network because they're introverts. I honestly think that's a load of, I shouldn't swear. It's a load of rubbish, and it's an excuse in my opinion. If you want, I'm an extrovert. I love being the center of attention. My wedding day for me was the dream. Everyone looked at me, they told me how beautiful I was. It was dreamy. My husband, on the other hand, is much more introverted, yeah? The wedding was about me and he was fine with that. He did not need that attention. He's secure enough in himself, okay?
He just came there.
Well, actually, he was a bridezilla. He was trying to control it, and the menehelet of the hall had to tell him, okay, you've got to calm down now because everything's fine. I was a very easy bride. I just wanted the attention. He was actually the nightmare, funnily enough. Yeah, I was not a bridezilla. He was a bridezilla. Sorry, babe. Where am I going with this? This is why. I love attention. Naturally, to be a good networker, you can't want attention because you have to be focused on the other person. So if I'm just talking at you for 10 minutes, now I'm socially aware enough not to do that. But there's some extroverts who are not. It doesn't endear you to anybody. If I literally sat and spoke at you for 10 minutes, you'd be like, what on earth is she? Why? I don't care. My husband, who is introverted, is a very, very, very good natural networker because he'll listen, and he'll really listen. He's not faking it. He's listening, he's absorbing, he's empathetic because that's more his nature. And he is not he's not socially awkward, but he's not an extrovert in the way that I am. And he's a much better natural networker. The skills that I learned came to him intrinsically because he knows how to talk to people, he knows how to listen, and he follows up because he's a nice person, and that's what he was taught to do as a kid. So it definitely can be taught. The main things with networking are, one, in the conversation, to just be aware that you're not speaking for too long, because we have a habit, if we're just nervous, we drone on. Sometimes with networking, I hear myself speak and I'm like, stop.
It's a good skill that I preach all the guests, basically, but yeah.
I say, okay, and sometimes I'll say networking, I'm so sorry I've spoken for ages, please tell me more about yourself. I'll do that, and I encourage people to do that as well. So that's number one. And number two is the follow-up, is following up with people, and again, that's just a skill. So whether you're introverted, whatever you associate as, you can learn to network. It is not that difficult. It's just about being someone that people would like, essentially.
Okay, all right, that's...
Did I crush you?
You did.
Thank you.
You did. Yeah, I just, I kind of, I push back on what people, might think, what our listeners might say. Yeah. And, sometimes, some people hold different opinions.
It's okay to be wrong. Don't panic.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about employment model. Okay. So, like we said, you have obviously all types of participants. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the ones who work for companies.
Yes.
So what's their goal? Do they come to, I don't know, expand their network, obviously, but the end goal
is to get more clients always. My networking is very much about getting an ROI and getting more clients.
So is it really measurable? Do they actually count things and all that?
I personally don't.
Mm-hmm.
There's groups that do. There's reasons I don't do it. I can go into it. It's just very boring. But people definitely get ROI, and we have people renewing now for their third year because they got, a very good return on their investment.
Okay, so if they come from companies, mm-hmm. they are obviously in sales or...
Not necessarily. We have a lot of law firms where the lawyers are members of lawyers are members, because some lawyers are responsible for bringing in sales. Accountancy firms, again, the same thing. Again, it's more of those bigger companies, I would say. I don't think we have mostly those who are employed are from law or accountancy firms.
Okay, and what about other designers?
They're mostly solopreneurs. I'm like running through the lists in my head. I don't think anyone else is from like a company in that sense. I have like a few web designers who have small companies, but they've started it and it's like, 4 people.
All right.
So yeah, it's not huge companies by any stretch. It's not the market.
Okay. All right. We reached a point in the podcast that you are now required to tell us a fadiha. Okay. Why do we do that? To break the ice. And it can be professionally, personally,
Oh my gosh.
whatever you want. And yeah, the listeners want to know one fadiha of yours, Helena.
There's so many to count. Wow.
You don't say.
You didn't listen to an episode.
I was very close to listening to it. I was really, really close. Fatiha, what did I do that was really stupid? I can think of other people's, I can't think of mine, that's the issue.
Actually, I think we can make an
I can
exception.
do it for someone else?
Yeah. Okay. So, I don't know, you're going to tell us a fadiha, but because you somehow got out of it.
I'm too perfect.
You're too perfect. So, you're going to tell us a fadiha of someone from your...
Yeah, I'm going to tell you fatiha about fatiha, well, it's a terrible accent,
Okay.
of one that I saw, and then something will come to me because I've definitely...
It could definitely have happened to you.
So I was a member of a women's networking group in a very posh part of London. It's called Kensington and Chelsea. It's like very, very fancy. And women's networking also is like very different because it's like just women, so they feel very comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, at the meetings, everyone stands up and gives a 60-second spiel, like a talk about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So this woman stood up and I'm trying to think how to word this. She basically started explaining that she'd been this is a networking group. It's professional. Even it's women, but it's still meant to be professional. Yeah. She stands up and she starts saying, and she's got a very posh accent, that she was seeing a gentleman, like a guy. They've been seeing each other for quite some time.
Wow.
And that he said that he was, which is already weird. Yeah, it's already odd that she's saying that in 60 seconds. It's
very
not really
personal.
met him. Very personal. And she starts talking about, how they've been seeing each other, and then it turns out, and he told he was an ex-soldier, and it turns out he'd lied about that, and then it turns out not only had he lied about that, but he was also still married. And she started going into like quite extreme detail about how understandably kind of derailed his life by telling his wife that and got into like quite, I would say, a 5 to 7 minute monologue about how he, like, what had happened, and I'll never, this was years ago. We're talking like, I've been in Israel 4 years. We're talking at least 6 years ago, and it's still like, I still remember the moment of just sitting in my chair and thinking, oh my God. Now, on the one hand, I've never forgotten this woman, ever. On the other hand, I would never use her for my business.
Maybe it was a trick.
She was like, she called herself like every girl Friday. She kind of was like a VA, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I would never use her for my business. Like I wasn't going to use her anyway, but I would certainly never have used her.
So maybe there is bad advertising in that sense.
I would say for sure. There's definitely bad PR. It was exceptional. It was very, very interesting. And there's a lot of situations of that in networking. I was actually on a call myself recently where somebody came to visit the group. And I'm very open that I'm pregnant because I want my members to know, and I want them to know that everything's kind of covered and for them not to panic or whatever. But she like went into quite a lot of detail about, without me asking, at the end I give like a sales spiel of why they should join. So I give the spiel, okay, great, thank you so much. And my colleague was on the call who I'm training up to cover me for the meeting. So we were on the call together with this lady and another woman. And she literally started telling me like in quite detail about her birth story. I had not asked for her birth story, that goes without saying. And the problem was that I was in the call with this a colleague of mine, and we're both trying not to laugh because it's ridiculous, but because we were together, like we're trying not to catch each other's eye, and we're like typing to each other being like, okay, this is and it was like 5 minutes, and the crazy thing was she was kind of telling me don't listen to other people's advice whilst giving me advice.
Oh my God. Yeah. So uncomfortable.
So that was like really just horrendous. And then the last one, which I think is really relevant to the men in the room, I'm so sorry, is that before I got married, obviously, like all brides, I was on a bit of a diet because that's what you do. And one of the members of the face-to-face group said to me, oh, you've lost weight. And another member who was next to him, who is a wonderful human being, said, you never comment on a woman's weight. And he was absolutely right. And I didn't have to say it because he said it for me. And really in networking, I have a very big belief that man, woman, whatever, you don't comment on somebody else's appearance. As a woman, I can comment on another woman's dress or like her outfit. Beyond that, I would never say if she'd lost or gained. Like, we don't do that. The only thing you can say is you look really nice, that's a lovely dress. And you to a man could say that's a lovely suit. And that's like the limit of it.
Ethics.
That's just what we do. So those are like the three. I will come to me something terrible that I've done.
I think we have.
You've got enough?
We've had enough.
There's loads.
Adijas.
There's loads.
I think we've had enough.
People do crazy things in networking.
Okay, yeah, I know you've written about it. A beautiful post. So yeah, guys, listening to us, visit this profile and see other inconvenient cases of people in conferences or networking events.
It's great for me for the content, to be honest. I keep doing them. There was a recent one that was horrific where a man was very inappropriate and it was like extremely uncomfortable, and like it was over the line. He was like very drunk and he was being quite disgusting.
OMG. Okay,
yeah.
So less booze in the
yeah, you don't. Oh my god, please don't drink an networking.
Okay.
Cannot stress that enough. That was awful. That was really unpleasant.
So have dinner and don't drink too much.
Yeah.
Let's talk about networking in the post-COVID era.
Yeah.
Is it more important than ever is now because of financially?
I mean, I've got to say that, don't I? Because it's my thing. I personally think it's more important than ever. I think
we rely on you to be authentic.
I think it's always been important. I think it's as important now as it ever was. I think that especially, and I've said this obviously a few times, but I've really seen high tech from friends from my inner circle how important having that network is to get those jobs, to get your foot in the door, specifically in this country. It's like so key. I don't think it's more. Like, I just think it's always been important, and you are doing a disservice to yourself if you do not keep those connections from more companies, if you do not maintain relationships with them on LinkedIn, just checking in with them. That is networking. It doesn't have to be anything fancier than that.
All right. Okay. Another thing we do here in Marketing Talks is we ask you for your inspiration. It can be name dropping. It can be a YouTube channel that you follow,
sure.
A persona, like a thought leader, a book you read.
Okay.
Tell us.
So it's a great question. You should ask all your guests. The books thing is a bit problematic for me because I read a lot. I just don't read business books. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Could be something personal, like
I do have inspiration. Don't panic. So How I Built This by Guy Raz is a podcast I listen to weekly.
Did you know they record here?
No,
I think
it's American.
Oh no. So there is another Israeli a parallel one by I can't remember his name.
Interesting. I'll have to listen on to it.
No, it's how did you do that?
Oh, so this is how I built
it's
it.
Okay, I'll probably
This
edit.
is like huge. This is like a
guys, I'll edit you an answer. Like what's the guy's name?
This is huge.
Idan Ben Tovim.
Yeah?
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Tell me, send it to me. I'd be interested to hear. So I listen to that every week, and I find some of the episodes are really boring, to be honest. What I find reassuring about that one is that however big, he interviews, like, we're talking huge companies, like huge. They're like the founders, and whoever they are, they've all made loads of mistakes, which is really validating for me. So I find that really, really inspirational. It's funny because you interviewed Michal Eskovitz on your podcast.
That's true.
And she's a big inspiration to me, actually. Like, genuinely, I was a copywriter before I did this, and she's huge in the copywriting world. Like, there's a group called Copywriter Club, which is the thing for copywriters. It's not a Jewish thing. And she was on the podcast, and she spoke at the event. And when I made Aliyah, I reached out to her and said, "You have no idea who I am, but I'm a huge, huge fan. I would love to meet up with you."
Way to go, Michal. Easy cop.
And she met up with me, and like I came to like I'm saying, that's what networking is. Like I said, listen, I'd love to meet up with you. I will come to wherever you are. Like, make it easy for, like, she's so much bigger than me. Do you know what I mean? So I went to her, like, with pleasure. It wasn't a problem. I bought her a coffee. I think, like I'm saying, I made it as easy as possible. So she is a huge inspiration for me. And then it's because what I do is very, very, very niche. There aren't many people doing what I'm doing, I'll be honest. I know a few people. I do know people, of course. They're not using social particularly well. So I don't know that I have, like, I can point towards this is my inspiration. What I would say is that, like, I'm inspired by a lot of the business women here in Israel, and I really mean that. Like this one called Esther Taub Fitness, who is amazing. And
Come again? What's the name?
Esther Taub. She runs Esther Taub Fitness.
Oh, okay.
And I'm really like inspired by her. I'll tell you who else is super inspirational for me here in Israel is Zoli, who runs Cafe Zoho on Ben Yehuda. She's also an amazing businesswoman, and those are
traditional business. I want a Hebrew speaker one.
You want a Hebrew?
Yeah, can I get one?
Who's inspiring? Esther and Zoli both speak Hebrew.
Oh, okay, all right.
I think
we can go with that.
I think Esther's Hebrew is pretty banging. I think. Listen, I could have done this in Hebrew. It would have been painful, but I could have done it.
No, I think it's fine. I think
I would have spoken slow in Hebrew, so there's.
I think you did great. I think it was very insightful. And lastly, I would just ask you where would networking groups be in 5 years?
Wow, that is a great question.
Okay,
I really like that.
For me.
It's something I think about a lot, like genuinely, because this is what I do.
Bots will replace all of us, and we'll interact.
Well, that's what's good about networking is that bots aren't.
We have to. Yeah.
It's not really as a copywriter. I think they are genuinely nervous. I don't think they need to be. I think if you're a good copywriter, the bots are not there yet. I don't think they'll be there for a very long time, if ever. They're certainly not there right now. I think it is going to evolve and change for sure, and I think my networking, not to toot my own horn, is fairly modern, and it really does take a more relaxed and modern approach to networking. There's a lot of groups, I'm talking more so chutzlaretz, that are very rigid, they're very strict, and they're very early. They're like, in England, they're 6:30 in the morning. No joke. Yeah. That's what I wanted to do when I started my groups, but obviously that wasn't an issue. That wasn't like appropriate for the Israeli market. It's B'diuk. So I think that rigidity we will see it's not feasible. People aren't interested in it. There's too much competition in the market, and people don't want to be treated like children. They're not willing to kind of do that. I think a lot about what it will mean for my groups. And I'm not sure is the honest answer. Networking will always exist. It will always be important. And I think social media kind of replaces networking. If you are really, really, really good at social media, you don't need to do networking groups. That's the truth, yeah? That's the God's honest truth. Yeah, you kind of got it sorted.
Okay.
But a lot of people are not good enough at social media. It's extremely challenging, and networking is a much easier route to market at the end of the day, because it's just about being a nice person, which most people are nice and normal. So I think if anything was going to disrupt networking, it would have been social media, which it did not do, or it would have been COVID, which also did not happen. I think it is going to change. I'm just not sure what that change will look like, but I am heartened by the fact that it has survived social media, which really should have killed it, really. Like, that's the truth. And COVID, which should have transformed it completely, but it's now back to what it was, for me anyway.
Where we all have like our human needs and we want to interact and want to engage.
So it's something I think about, and I just don't have the answers. I'm so sorry for you.
It's fine.
But I'm not stressed about AI, to be honest. Maybe that's wrong, but I don't think I need to worry quite.
No, I think you shouldn't be.
I'm delightful. I'm not sure AI could replicate me. And if they could, that'd be quite scary for everyone involved, I think.
I tend to agree. Helena Baker, we reached the end of the episode. I want to thank you.
Thank you
for coming here and for providing us with all this insightful information.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And yeah, I wish you good luck. And guys who are listening to us, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm Daniel Moore, the host, and this is Marketing Talks, and we'll see you in the next episode with another great guest from the marketing or product or entrepreneurship industry in Israel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.